Hi, Joe Cerrone,
Alan Rosen.
and we're going to talk to you today about CAD 107, Intro to 3D Printing. We're going to run the course using the D2L course management system, and we'll post the announcements here. Our first announcement is our first notification of a video meeting, which will be Wednesday, September 2nd at 4 p.m. And you'll be able to attend that meeting by clicking on the Zoom link and then entering the meeting passcode. We will hold these video meetings every week, but the course is set up as asynchronous, which means that all the content will be there for you if you attend the meeting or not. But what we found is that the meetings work really well for students to get a chance to ask questions and for us to interact with everybody. Right, Al?
That is correct. And if you have any problems or whatever else, please don't hesitate to email us anytime you need to, either Joe or myself.
Exactly. And so as we go through and we start to work with our course here, we want you to know that we're contactable and we're here to help. So we're planning how to run the course, and we'll have that Zoom meeting on Wednesday. 2 textbooks are required for the course, 3D printing projects, and there's a link to it on Amazon here.
Which is a fantastic book and not that expensive, as you can tell.
Correct. And so get the book, please. We have the projects for the class in here, and there's 20 different projects, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. And then the other book is more theoretical, the Mastering 3D Printing. And they've updated this book, and they did a really great job by including modeling, which would be our CAD aspects, printing, and prototyping. And so again, the prices are really quite reasonable for the textbooks, and you will need those 2 books for the course.
And our quizzes are coming right out of that book.
You can get them on Google Books as well. So you will also need software, a CAD software and a slicing software. And what we found is that we have 3 main softwares. 2 of them are CAD. The course will be primarily taught using AutoCAD. And so we will go through and do the instructions with AutoCAD, but we realize that there are a number of people who like to use SolidWorks. So you're welcome to use the SolidWorks as well. And as we develop these, Al and I will create videos, but we're primarily going to use AutoCAD to start off with. You can download that software by clicking on this link, and you can download the SolidWorks if you decide to use that by clicking on this link. And then you'll need the Dremel DigiLab software, which is what controls the 3D printer or creates the files for the 3D printer. And these softwares are all no charge, free to students. You can download the Windows version or the Mac version. And then there's a tutorial here on actually how to use the software. We're going to keep this video meeting, this video introduction relatively short, but we will have support if you do have any questions on that. And the best thing to do if you do have a question is to just go up here to the email and either quick message or email Al Rosen and I, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible to help you with whatever questions you might have regarding the software like AutoCAD, SolidWorks, or the DigiLab.
Now, they also have help. So if you have some problems with AutoCAD software, how to load it, it's not working for some reason or other, or whatever it is, there's the help desk, and we have a link going right to it. Same thing with the school has some options. So if you don't have a real powerful computer, we do VPN, and that will allow you right into the school itself. But we need to know that beforehand so we can give you a number that corresponds with the lab over it. Open.
And that information will be in the course announcements. So as we look at how we're going to manage the course, in the content tab, you'll see that there's a table of contents, and there is a, we'll start off with the syllabus. CAD 107, Introduction to 3D Printing, Fall 2020. No prerequisites. Al's and I in my contact information. You can call this phone number. It'll be forwarded since we're working under pandemic rules. The course is an introduction to 3D printing with an emphasis on operations of 3D printers and design of 3D printed parts. The computer will be used by students to create three-dimensional models and prepare the models to print using plastic modeling material. We typically use PLA, polylactic acid. It's a biodegradable plant-based plastic. The course will cover step-by-step approach to creating models and setting up a 3D printer. Here's our learning objectives, and we'll incorporate those learning objectives into the assignments. Essentially, we want to be able to design and make parts on a 3D printer. And we also want to look at other things like the advantages and limitations of 3D printing technologies. And the books do an excellent job of being able to introduce students to different types of 3D printers and the process that's involved in using them. Academic integrity, essentially there's an academic code of conduct in the student handbook. It's recommended you look that over so that you don't violate any of the policies. Most people just do their work and it's just fine, but make yourself aware of the policies. Our outline of topic will basically cover the textbook chapter by chapter. And so we'll look at why use the 3D printer, 3D printers and printable materials, 3D printer workflow and software. And this is where we get into using CAD and using slicing softwares. And so there's a number of different areas that we'll go through, but essentially it's going to be a class where we'll lecture about the content, like why use a 3D printer, and then we'll have a lab aspect where we will go through and do a project.
And the projects are really fun. They're not like, yeah.
It is a nice aspect, you know, when we can actually start to make things. And now that everything's digital, we can make this work where we can email in or Dropbox in our assignments, and then students can go and pick up their parts. We'll have to have a kiosk for them to pick them up, but essentially it's very workable. And so as we look at the course practices, we'll have a lab for each module. We'll have a quiz or questions at the end of each chapter. We'll have a final exam. And then your labs themselves need to be turned in. Here again is the textbooks. Grading scale will be straight 90, 80, 70, 60. If you have any documented psychological or physical disabilities, feel free to talk to Al and I privately, and we'll make sure that we get you hooked up with somebody that can give you the assistance support that you need. Oakton is considered a very safe place. We follow the rules for Title IX and are supportive of different and diverse viewpoints as specified in our syllabus. And if there's something that's just, you know, you can't make it to class, or there's something that comes up, we try to be really good about being able to work with you on that. Right, Al?
Yes, sir.
So that's the syllabus. I'm going to come back to the table of contents. The textbook for 3D printing projects, we've scanned in the first few chapters to take a look at it. And so it has a number of these different projects. And they're all really short and sweet as we go through and we create them. And what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll create videos of how to do these projects. One thing about the projects book is that the author kind of picked some projects that were pretty difficult in the beginning to CAD model. And so we've gone through and we've picked which ones we're going to start with. And so we're going to start with a project that Al and I came up with for creating a coin. And what better coin than a 50-cent piece, I guess we could call it. And
50th year,
so
50th anniversary.
that's right. And so the projects will be on CAD. They'll have our learning objectives to use CAD, create a solid model, save the file, and then to be able to virtually 3D print the file. And so if I look at my AutoCAD, this is primarily how that's going to look when we get into the software. And we'll have written instructions for how to create these different parts. And then once we create this part, what we'll do is we'll export that and then we'll import it. And so I could go and say, export. And we'll say options. Whoops.
I believe we need to change from student.
Other formats. And we'll export this as STL. Right there. And that's our typical file format. I'm going to put this on my desktop. And I'll say save. And I'll click the part and I'll hit enter. And then what we do, once we have created the part, we go into our Dremel software.
And sorry if you can't see it right now, it's we have a certain version on here.
And what we'll do, this is what our 3D printer environment looks like. And what we're able to do is we're able to open that file. And then we're going to be able to print that. Now, this is just a coin. We'll go through how the interface works. And how to drive it. Essentially, what we can do is we can slice it. And then we're able to look at it and how the 3D printer will print these parts layer by layer. And it's really a very neat process. And so this is kind of the lab aspect that we'll go through. Once we have them set up to print, we actually have this where we'll be able to virtually see the printers, and we'll get that set up as we go through the course. All right, so that's a quick rundown on how the course is going to be set up for the syllabus and the lab, and then the lectures will be geared towards the 3D printing textbook. And so this is the book for 3D printing, Mastering 3D Printing. And it's a great book. It goes through a lot of different aspects that are relevant to the course. And so why use a 3D printer? Why are we using CAD? And then as we go through and we learn about the content and the materials, additive manufacturing is what it really is. And when they talk about what a 3D printer does and how it works, it basically came about in the 80s. And essentially now the program or the 3D printing has progressed to a point where it's really very mainstream, to the point where we can even 3D print things out of metal. But as we look at it, it provides some very good content and history and information about 3D printing. So we're not just designing and printing, but we're also learning about how this technology was developed and the different types of 3D printers, things like, if I want to get a 3D printer, what kind of printer do I want to get? Do I want to get a kit or something fully assembled? And we'll have a number of different things that we talk about as we go into it. The other thing I like about the textbook is that it also goes through different types of prototyping. And so we do have the ability at the Skokie campus to do laser cutting. And we also have the ability to do CNC machining. And these are also very good prototyping technologies that we want to introduce our students to. And then at the end of each of the chapters, we will be assigning questions for students to answer as homework. Things like, you know, how to fabricate things and what would be an appropriate fabrication device.
And you'll see these in D2L for you.
That's right. So we'll get all that stuff set up as we are going through, but essentially this is how the course is going to be set up to run. We will have this first meeting on Wednesday, September 2nd at 4 o'clock. All right, Al, is there anything else that we may need to add in our introductory video?
No, just as long as they're there, ready to work, have a good time.
So get the books,
Yes.
download the software, and we'll see you Wednesday, September 2nd.
And by the way, if you don't download the software and don't get the books, you can't do the work.
Yeah, it does
work.
help if you get the software and the books. And we're happy to help with that. If anything comes up, you know, you can email us and we can do Zoom meetings to help with that. All right, that ends this video.